Okay, this is Santa Monica Beach. So there's nothing flammable anywhere near these vehicles. There's no forest on the beach. So look at these vehicles. Look on the right. He's going to show you one in a second. So completely burned out. You got power lines on the beach and a helicopter. You got two cars, one on top of the other. And so every vehicle on this beach is completely incinerated. And there's no trees anywhere near them. They're on the ocean, so there's no fire coming from the ocean side. There's no fire coming from the other side because it's beach. And then you've got cliffs on the other side of that. So, I mean, how is a forest fire incinerating cars on a beach?
I'm going to go ahead and stop this piece of video right here, folks, because I want to make one comment. You know what this visual reminds me of? This reminds me of scenes from the war
Yeah,
over
yeah.
in the Middle East, where like they've dropped bombs on
So
convoys
mainstream media, they're going to
and on
explain
like
this as, oh
roadways
yeah,
that
the embers
vehicles
flew
were
down
driving
onto the
on,
fucking
and
beach and
you
it
just see
incinerated the cars and melted the
literal,
aluminum, and you're like,
literally just
really?
complete destruction. So you're on a roadway right near the ocean. The sand is right off to the right of you in this perspective.
Yeah, good
What the hell
question.
was burning?
Really fucking good question.
Well, where's the forest fire? What burned? Or did it all burn to the ground? What happened to the people
Yeah.
that were in these vehicles? You know, you saw one vehicle
Yeah, that's another
smashed
thing. We
up
see
on top of
vehicles
another
flipped up
vehicle.
or upside down continuously.
Where are the people? What
So,
happened to them?
so you're telling me there was a
I
fire
think so
tornado
far
on the
they've
beach
listed,
in
I think, anywhere
Santa
from
Monica?
25 to 30
Really?
people that have already been declared dead. Many people missing. Their family members trying to find them. But what happened
You know,
at
when's
this
the last
beach
time you heard
location?
somebody's hundreds of
This
cars
does
melting
not
at
look
someone's
like
beach?
a forest fire.
I mean, it just doesn't
This
freaking
looks like
Hello, people!
a war zone. I don't know what you guys think. That's my opinion. But this looks like a war zone. Let's go ahead
So
and
I
go
can't
further
wait to
through
hear the
video
explanation
information.
how the trees that weren't on the beach burned the cars. You know, that was another flipped over car there. So these car and oh, this takes the cake though. I made a video of this earlier. So you've got a steel frame bridge with nothing organic underneath it. There's no trees underneath it. There's no shrubbery underneath it. The riverbed is dry.
Now this was a bridgeway, as you can see, with steel beam girders and asphalt over that small little overpass, completely destroyed.
Right here, we're looking
But
into the
what
Thousand
happened?
Oaks
What
area.
happened to the rest
This
of
is
the
fascinating
area?
here.
Let's just go back here just a little bit. Let's replay that.
So the beams have
I'll
melted
stop it
or
right here.
sagged.
Okay, you can see that is just a small little overpass. The steel girders are completely buckled, and it takes quite a bit of temperature, folks, to melt steel.
You know, the
You know,
other thing is,
we all
what
heard about
is
that
underneath
during
the asphalt? Obviously,
investigations
they're not
of
putting the
9/11.
asphalt right on empty steel beams. There has to be a
So
metal substructure
why
that's completely
did
gone.
this small little overpass bridge, why was it destroyed, but nothing else around it? If you take a quick look to the upper left, the upper right, you
Yeah,
see
so the
somewhat of
trees on the
greenery.
shore, they're not burned, but the
It
bridge
doesn't
is
look to be
burned.
burnt,
Yet there's nothing
but yet
underneath
this
it
small little
that would
overpass
generate anywhere
bridge
near the temperatures that you would need to
is
melt that,
completely
to
destroyed.
make that steel beam
Like
droop.
something targeted that bridge
And you know, you're going to tell me that
and destroyed it.
smoldering
Just my
asphalt
opinion.
is going to generate the
Just
kind of
my
temperature you're
opinion.
going to need to melt the steel in the bridge. Right. This is bizarre. And the trees right next to the bridge, they're not on fire. Oh no. Nope, they're fine.
See, folks, that house right across the way looks completely intact.
So then you got the really selective nature of some of these fires is bizarre. And people are saying that it was the smart meters. Now, these particular fires they're showing you now, these are smart meter fires because the homes next to them didn't burn.
Now, folks, this is a helicopter, news helicopter. This is the northern end of this this area. How is it that
Look at the trees
that
behind the house. They're not
was
burned.
obliterated, and the house right next to it, nothing happened to it? You can see 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean,
Look
let's
at that
be
one. The
realistic here.
trees
How
are green
is
all the way
that
around
possible?
it. The pool is full of water, and yet the house is burned down to the ground.
Still standing, but the one right there is
You know.
gone, and it got into these houses.
Where are these embers coming from?
Got that one house right there. In fact, that's one we were watching last night. Yeah, we were watching this one last night.
Now, this is more drone footage, and
Yeah, some
you
of
can
these
see the
areas are
haze
so depressing.
over
Oh my
the
God,
area,
look at that.
and just
It looks like an
take a look.
atomic
Now,
bomb hit.
you have trees, still green. There's a tree
Yeah, look
right
at the one right in the middle
middle
there, the double green.
of a house
you know,
that was
still growing.
devastated,
Nothing wrong with it.
turned into dust. But yet the green pine tree is untouched. Ladies and gentlemen, we've had the same questions for the last 3 years.
Yeah, that's another one. People think that
What the hell is
LA
going
fire,
on
the California
in California?
started this year. No,
There
it's been
is
going
no
on.
way, in my perception, that wildfires from a little campfire are to blame for this.
This is a bizarre,
News Channel 7's Julia Avery
absolutely
went back to
bizarre
the scene with
interview.
Steve Bustillos as he recalls that terrifying day.
All I could see was the heat waves, a couple 100 feet tall, and there was
heat
no fire
waves.
yet there. I'm like, that's kind of weird. And next thing I know, just full-on ignition.
Let's listen to that one
News
more
Channel
time.
7's Julia Avery went back to the scene with Steve Bustillos as he recalls that terrifying day.
All I could see was the heat waves, a couple 100 feet tall, and there was no fire yet there. I'm like, that's kind of weird. And next thing I know, just full-on ignition.
Steve Bustillos was at his home in the gated Stanford
There's a
Hills
Firenado
subdivision
right there.
on
You
July
can see it. It's
26th
rotating
when
in
the
the
car fire
background.
roared across the river, forming that deadly fire tornado. The retired police officer packed up his truck with his
This guy was
family's
an
most
idiot, by the way.
precious mementos. He helped
He's a
some
lucky
neighbors
idiot.
and called his wife Carrie, who was in the Bay Area, as he drove out through thick smoke and flames.
He said, "Babe, I've got
Yeah.
everything we need loaded into our truck."
And next thing I know, the window's being broke open. There's like ambers and ashes blowing inside the cab of the pickup truck. And I looked in the back of the truck, and all I could see was everything that was back there was on fire already.
And then I heard him just
So
say,
all the
"Oh,"
crap he was
and
rescuing
do
is on
explosive
fire
words.
as he's driving back.
Said it
Great.
twice, and I knew that meant really danger.
And I dropped the phone. I didn't know where it was at.
I never wanted to think of anything other than he's going to be okay, but the realistic side of me, I was devastated.
So there's his
So I knew
pistol
the
collection,
phone
I
was
guess. All his
destroyed. I
Glocks
just
are all
had hope
melted.
that he was safe.
As Carrie was praying for her husband, Steve was in the fight of his
Now
life
listen to
up
this.
against that monstrous fire tornado.
The truck's moving, and I'm like, got both feet planted on the brake pedal.
The truck's moving, and I'm like, got both feet planted on the brake pedal.
And the truck is literally starting to lift up off the ground.
So his
Steve's
truck
years of
is
training-
lifting up
And the
off
truck
the
is
ground
literally starting to lift
in an
up
area
off the
where a
ground.
minute ago there was no
Steve's
fire.
years of training
Kicked in, and he started solving the problem. Get out of
So
the
there's
truck
the remnants of
and
the truck.
under an
The truck
abandoned
is gone.
bulldozer.
Moved in between the blade and the tracks in the back, and I pulled the bags up around me and started bringing some loose dirt up towards me, and I kind of just waited it out there until it all stopped.
Steve crawled out and
So
was
he
picked
hid
up by
under
a
a
passing CAL
bulldozer.
FIRE truck, eventually making his way to the hospital.
All I could see was the heat waves, a couple 100 feet tall, and there was no fire yet. They were like, that's kind of weird. And next thing I know, just full-on ignition.
So
Moved in between the
dozers,
blade and the
yeah.
tracks in the back, and I pulled the bags up around me and started bringing some loose dirt up towards me, and I kind of just waited it out there until it all stopped.
So look at this now. There's the engine of the car. This was a new vehicle, by the way, sitting in a driveway. So there's the engine, which is now inside where the house was. And there's the rest of the vehicle outside of the house, where it apparently was near there. And we know it's the right engine. You can still see the exhaust pipe is still connected to the car. So what happened to this? You know, you could say, oh, it was in a fire. Well, okay, so your car burns in a fire. What lifts the car, flips it on its side, and removes the engine and puts it 10 feet away in the living room?
Sam's car in our hallway.
This isn't something you see in fires.
Sam's car in our
So the engine is now where the hallway used to be. I think it's a Subaru, but I'm not sure.
motor.
So that was a new car sitting parked there. Now look at the car back there. It's upside down. It has a very flat-sided car, the one in the back. And there's the rear end for one of the other vehicles. 3 vehicles in this shot. You had the Subaru, the Fairlane, and the... Oh, I can't think. I'll say it in a minute. There's 3 cars. These are antique cars sitting in his driveway. The thing in the middle is actually a car. But it's been so smashed up, the only thing you can see is the exhaust pipes on it. It's the only thing that's identifiable. That was a beautiful vehicle before the fire.
It felt like a dream that I wanted to wake up from. It was all
So we're going to see the pictures of what these 2 cars looked like when they were sitting in the driveway, and compare to them what you see now,
really knows how
and then explain to me how a fire does that. There's the 2 vehicles.
62 Wildcat that I've had since I was 19.
There's I think that's the Fairlane.
My wife lost the 63 Fairlane that I built
63
her for her birthday.
So there's the Fairlane.
I think there's 9,000 cars that burned in that.
Oh, there's the other one. Bearcat or something. Buick Bearcat or something. So the Buick is the one it looks like a refrigerator now. You know, that's, you know, so what happened to the Buick? In order to get the Buick to look like that, it has to be sledgehammered. Like, I mean, it's a big car, and now it's about 1/3 of the size it was. There's the crankshaft from the engine. So what kind of fire separates the crankshaft from the car?
Inside a neighborhood that is no longer habitable.
So this
So the Santa
gets
Rosa
weird.
Police Department has called in Joe Crean to come clear the burned cars out.
There's no oils, there's no gasoline, there's no brake, nothing. The cars are completely burned. Everything is burned in them. We want to do right with everybody.
We're doing it for free, he says.
We want to do right with everybody.
So he's picking up the cars for free.
There's no oils, there's no gasoline, there's no brake, nothing. The cars are completely burned. Everything is burned in them.
It's a massive job that extends beyond Coffey Park, and one that also hits home. Joe's daughter lost her home in the fire.
So we've got these vehicles that look like they were put in a crusher and flipped around and smashed, thrown in the air, and, you know, pieces of them are flying around the yard. Pieces like the crankshaft have fallen out.
He answers
So
the call by taking the charred
what
shells
is
and loading
happening
them
in
on
these
his trucks
fires?
one by one.
Where the engines and the crankshafts are being, you know, ripped out of the vehicles, and they're flipped over upside down. And then we see plastic in the back of the bed liner. So clearly not everything burned.
There's no oils, there's no gasoline, there's no brake, nothing.
So the
cars
plastic
are
didn't burn,
completely
but the
burned.
engine did.
Everything is burned in them.
It's a massive job that extends beyond Coffey Park. They go to his yard where they get
So
smashed
they're
into
already,
scrap
you know, they're
and
already
sent
getting rid
to
of
a recycling
the
center in
evidence.
Redwood City. So what happens once they get to Redwood City?
We're doing this for free.
Well, Joe says they're ultimately shredded
Wait a
and then
second.
sent to
Sent
China,
to
where
China?
poetically They are made back into cars. You can see there's really nothing left. There's no money in there for scrap.
Going as fast as we can.
He's clearing and scrapping for free.
One man is now making it his mission to get those cars to the scrapyard.
Shredded and
This
then
reminds
sent
me
to
of the
China.
911 steel that just happened to be the exact right length.
Mr. John Lord, here we go.
What a career.
We're November 1st, Santa Rosa, California. We're here with Captain John Lord, and John's going to tell us about his experiences since the fires began October 9th. John?
So, October 9th, my sister was up at my house in Lakeport, and they left around 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and I texted her a couple of times as they were driving home.
This is Sunday. This is Sunday night.
This Sunday afternoon.
Okay.
Not realizing that anything was going on, and talked with her the next day, and she said that the winds, when she went home, they went down through Napa Valley. The winds were like nothing that she had ever experienced. They were in a half-ton Chevy Tahoe, and it was loaded, so it had gear in the back, so it had plenty of weight to it. And she said they were being buffeted and blown all over the road. Fortunately, her boyfriend was driving, and he was absolutely shell-shocked by the time they got to Danville. He was so freaked out by the experience.
And before we get into this, so what's your experience and background?
My experience and background is that I have been in the paramedical field over 40 years. I started in the Navy in November 1974. I was in the medical field by early 1975, and got trained as a paramedic before I got out of the Navy. And I did 2.5 years with private ambulance in Concord, and then took a job with Petaluma Fire Department in November, I believe, of 1981, September I think, 1981. So I was one of the original 6 paramedics there, hired there, and cross-trained as a firefighter. And during that time I was in there, I earned my associate degree in fire technology, a bachelor's degree in business management. I have my fire officer certification, and was working on my chief officer certification when I retired. So I have about 28 years experience in the fire service.
Wonderful. And you teach firefighters, or you have some teaching?
Yeah, I have about 25 years teaching experience working with the Paramedic Academy, the Firefighter 1 Academy, and the Fire Technology Program. And myself and a friend of mine developed a course that is now standard practice for the state, which is building construction for fire protection, and began to roll that out. So about 25 years teaching experience.
And you were showing us this big book album of awards and certifications. I mean, what are you most proud of as far as awards or achievements, John?
Well, the things I'm most proud of is new technologies that I brought into the fire service against great adversity, which is external cardiac pacing. That was an immense project, and involved multiple organizations that I worked with, and kind of provided a leadership role and coordination, and we were actually able to impact the state leadership to allow that to be added into expanded scope of practice. So anybody in the state of California that's using external pacing on cardiac patients is a result of my work, and not just my work. Others worked on the project as well. I forget what the doctor's name was in San Francisco, was also doing work on the trial study, but our work was instrumental in getting him to add that skill to expanded scope of practice. I'm extremely proud of that. I also led a task force in Sonoma County to build a quality improvement program, an integrated program within the county, and I'm very proud of that work. And finally, probably the third thing is getting advanced life support services added to our frontline engines in our truck in the city of Petaluma. So we had the equipment when there was a
paramedic assigned to the engine. They actually had the equipment to be able to work and provide that level of care.
Gotcha. And so going back to the night of the fire, so we're talking the afternoon, Sunday afternoon, the 8th, I believe, and I'm here in Santa Rosa, and I didn't notice any change until about 10:30 at night. I mean, I wonder, you live nearby here, and until your daughter called, were you aware the weather was changing?
It was my sister.
Your sister, I'm sorry. Were you aware anything was going on?
There was nothing going on in Lakeport. The winds were absolutely still, and there was nothing going on. No evidence of any aberrant weather, any fronts coming in, anything like that.
So when did you start to notice? When did you first occur something was going on?
When I first found out about it was the following morning.
And phone call or?
I connected with my sister. She told me what had happened. I became aware of the fires, and started kind of doing reconnaissance on them. Because we had in Lakeport, if you look at a large map, we had basically fire on 3 sides of us. So kind of a triangular shaped pattern. There was fire, a big fire all the way on the other end of the lake. The one in Redwood Valley was going on, and then the one near Matt's house, a Tubbs fire that burned into Santa Rosa.
Did you call Matt in the morning and compare notes of what you guys were seeing?
Not as of that point, no.
So you were just trying to figure out what the heck's going on?
Just trying to figure out what the heck's going on.
And when you talked to your sister down in Napa and got a heads up that there was some big winds and you weren't feeling it, and then all of a sudden 3 fires are going on all around you, you turn on the news that Napa and Santa Rosa are also ablaze. I mean, I think you're up in the pocket fire, they called it up there? Is that what they're calling it?
See, which fire was it? It was,
the Redwood Valley one, I think they're calling the pocket fire.
That's the pocket fire. And then the one on the other side of the lake I was watching really closely because it was burning into a cul-de-sac formed by the lake itself. That was the prevailing winds were pushing in that direction, so it could only burn to the water. But what I was concerned about is if we got a wind shift and it hooked around and would have burned down Highway 20 toward Lakeport. So I was watching that one really closely.
When you started to see, probably on TV, the devastation when they started showing these homes and complete dustification, evaporation of all the buildings, what were you thinking as a fireman?
Well, I don't watch TV.
Okay.
I haven't watched TV in 25 years. So I get my information from the internet, and I have my sources that I go to. And the first thing that I noticed, I think, was the rapidity of the fire movement, which seemed abnormally fast to me, considering that there was no weather fronts or winds or anything that I was aware of that would have driven the fires that quickly. And also the number of fires was extremely alarming. Where did all these fires come from?
Mm-hmm.
How did they all start at once? And so I started digging, and when I started digging, I started looking at the research that was available for directed energy weapons, and what I started reading actual government documents that people had put up, various people had put up on the website, and looking at the destruction, which I have never seen in my career, the totality of the destruction on the structures. There was absolutely nothing left of the structures except foundation. Now, I've seen that with other fires, but not where it moves like that. Not where the fire is moving and one side of the street everything's fine, the other side of the street it looks like a nuclear war zone. Never seen anything like that.
What other options could there be besides a high torch directed energy weapon that you could consider as a possibility in your experiences of all the firefighting you've done?
There's none that I could think of. There's none.
So this is the only plausible explanation that's being presented?
It's the only plausible explanation in my opinion. That's the conclusion that I was brought to based on my almost 30 years of experience.
And you know that steel melts in thousands of degrees and all this, and to see steel bent like that, but have vegetation and plant life and eucalyptus trees.
The holes that were burned through the hoods of cars all the way through the engine block are a little bit suspicious.
Wasn't that
The holes that were burned through the hoods of cars all the way through the engine block are a little bit suspicious.
Wasn't that crazy?
Yeah.
The aluminum on the ground that had melted to the ground where the guy was walking over it? Okay.
That I've seen before. We had a tanker fire, a gasoline tanker fire on 101, and the gasoline fuel is moved around in aluminum tanks like that, thick aluminum tanks, and that one caught on fire and melted the aluminum like that.
Right.
So I have seen aluminum melt like that in a structure fire or other fire.
Let's talk for a sec about how a firestorm creates. And it's my understanding that a fire has to build its fuel and consume its oxygen to intensify over time as heat builds up over time. But we're having this firestorm. These fires happen in a matter of a couple hours and created thousands of degrees temperature without any provocation from fuel to build itself. It just happened, it seems like.
Yeah. It seems like.
Right. I mean, that's the only, I mean, it just happened over a couple hours, and then it was just about, you know, how the fires were spreading. But the initial destruction was here, there, and everywhere, and everything down to the bone of the homes, literally, where all that's left is the fireplace. But there's no iron tubs, there's no granite counters. I mean, we went through Old Redwood Highway here and went Mark Rest Road, and it was just amazing how there was nothing left. I mean, nothing.
Yeah.
And the fires, you know, they were out there within a few hours. So what could have caused that?
A normal temperature up high in a fully involved structure fire is around 1100 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
That's normally what we consider operating fire conditions, about 1100 degrees. And the fact is that there's a lot of plastics inside households right now, so plastics liberate a lot more heat than wood would, about twice as much.
Did you hear anything about blue lights being seen, and anybody saying that?
I saw the photographic evidence on the internet.
Did you see, I heard of anybody else commenting that they've seen blue lights, like they've been commenting on my site, that I saw blue flashes, I saw it, and other people have been saying it as well.
Yeah, just some in passing, but I saw actual photographs that people took from their cell phones.
I saw actual photographs that people took from their cell phones.
Their cameras.
All right, and then how do you feel about learning that the Planning and Zoning Commission is having the exact same footprints nearly as these fires were, and that now they're declaring some of these areas from a previous fire that could be deemed a severe zone that maybe they shouldn't be rebuilt now? Have you any comment on that?
Well, I guess my comment would be that I'm fully aware of Agenda 21 and that it doesn't surprise me one bit.
And have you talked to other firemen as well about this? Are they on the same page as you, or are they even questioning this, or what are they thinking?
Yes, two others I've talked with directly about it, and we're all in agreement
that something very strange, very unique and new has happened. Right. And have you been to tour the areas? Have you looked around at some of the areas?
Only what I've seen on the internet from overhead.
Gotcha.
And I just drove down 101, so what I could see from the freeway.
So just conjecture, what do you think these firemen who are looking at these fires they've never seen before and talking among themselves, how do you think are they talking about it? What do you think because they've never seen anything like it either, and listening to that Berkeley engine number 6 that came up and their whole journey through it, they were totally astounded where they couldn't even set up a base station to start fighting from because everything was on fire. We have 100,000 square foot Kmart completely torched by 3 a.m. in the morning, where these fires leapt across 8 lanes of road and torched the Kmart on the other side of the road. What kind of fire does that?
A fully sprinklered building.
Well, yeah, that's the other thing is California has one of the highest sprinkler laws in the country.
Not natural phenomena, unnatural phenomena. Like I said, I've never seen anything like it. And the other thing is that amongst some of the courses that I worked on, I taught a course, co-taught with others. That's where this t-shirt comes from. We flew back to Florida twice and worked with these guys one time for a week and taught a course on firefighter safety and survival. And so I have done a lot of case studies on different fires, both wildland and structural fires where firefighters have been killed. And I am telling you, based on my studies, of actual case studies, that I've never seen anything like we just experienced in Northern California.
So who would be responsible in the greatest fire in California history to make a determination of what went down now for the officials? Since we have no official story 3.5 almost weeks out. Who should be making that call and letting everybody know what they believe happened?
Well, I think that ultimately depends on how they bump it around within the government organizations and who they put in charge of the lead on it.
And do you have any? I mean, they won't come out and say directed energy weapons. They can't.
Not likely.
And so they're having tornado fire. I've heard bandied about Diablo winds, which I've lived in Northern California all my life. I never heard that term before until they just started throwing it out there. PG&E poles.
Serial arsonist.
Serial arsonist. Yeah, they have somebody was saying there was some jeans on fire on a road with matches in it. Things like that. But it's amazing that we're not even having the greatest fire in history, even a scenario being brought to the front about how this possibly could have happened. But yet over 100,000 people are lost their homes, and now they're meeting tomorrow with the EPA and FEMA, who've moved into Santa Rosa along with the military police, and they're going to dictate what these people's lives are going to be going forward if we don't get to them and start helping them ourselves, right?
Right.
And you were talking about the spiritual journey. You want to talk about how this is a spiritual war? You want to get into that at all?
Not really right now, but I would like to say this, is that my heart goes out to all those people that have been victimized by this fire in one way or another. Those that were lost, those that were injured, those that lost property in their homes. And I don't know what's going to happen, but I think that as we, as human beings and as a community, come together, that we can help one another more than anticipating any help from the government. And that's my 2 cents on it.
And are you willing to go and talk with other firefighters and see if they can help out and other people can be brought up to speed that we need to come together as a community? Because,
Absolutely.
Because my feeling is we just got attacked.
Yeah, firefighters, you got to understand nature beast with firefighters is that we love helping people.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's what firefighters are all about. So, I know many just outstanding people in the service. So, not everybody's aware of what's going on, but that's the way it always goes.
Well, and you're the first responders. That's what we always call you in all the letters and over the freeways. Thank you, first responders. And I want to thank you personally, John, for coming here, and also for all the career, all you've done to help others and give. Because one thing I've learned about firemen is they get into business because they want to help. They get into business because they want to, quote, save lives. And they're first responders that put themselves on the line. Here they go after a fire they've never seen before in the middle of the night, this had to be called the Beast Fire. I mean, this is so amazing what just happened here. Until you're actually seeing it and being around it, you can't appreciate the devastation that went on in certain areas, and then just over the hill, completely normal, natural, everybody's back to everyday life. And so we have so many people that are displaced, but with the fireman community, other first responders that want to build, we're out of the ashes going to come something better. But it's going to be a community organizing effort, not dictating from the federal government down to these people who've lost everything, and now they're being told they can't go back to their homes, and we're going to give them some opportunities because we care. And all of us are going to do it because we care, and it's not going to be about us. We're going to join the firemen, we're going to join other community leaders, but this is going to be exciting. And the spiritual part I was bringing that we were talking about earlier is this is about empathy. This is about giving to the greater good of all. And this is what we're supposed to all be about, I feel. And so with your giving and giving your time here to go on record, which is big, thank you, John. I mean, and thank you, Captain East Bay, for your input as well. And hopefully this will shed a little light and others will step forward and not be afraid to speak their truth about what they know, because a lot of people have secrets, and we need to all come out now, and we need to come together and really be the change we wish to see. So thank you, John, for your time. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. And there is only one truth.
There's the plain truth out. Thank you.
So let's take a look at some of these fire-nados. We were given the impression that with a single fire-nado out there, and You know, and melted rims everywhere, and melted engine blocks. And look at the size of that one. I mean, this thing was off the chain. Look at how far that aluminum went down the road. It's ridiculous. Aluminum down the road. You know, look at that thing. It's like 5 fire NATOs at once. Fire NATO. Melted aluminum. Fire NATO. Fire NATO. Melted aluminum. Yeah, and this can reach 2,000 degrees. Where does that come from? Melted aluminum. Fire NATO. Fire NATO. Fire NATO. Fire NATO. Fire NATO. Let's take a rim and we'll put an aluminum rim and we'll fill it with hardwood and burn it for hours and see what happens. Now remember, these cars are just laying on the street. There's no fuel source underneath the wheel aside from the rubber tire.
May not be able to read that on the screen right now, but it says 550 degrees Fahrenheit. So this has been going for about 45 minutes now, and as you can see, it's hovering right around 670.
So he's got it sitting on a fire pit filled with hardwood, burning
so this 18-inch rim is
for 45 minutes.
This is perfect. But let's
and it's only 700 degrees.
And then we'll inspect the rim in the morning to see how it made out.
So can an aluminum rim melt in a fire? Yes, it can. But
okay, the rim's been sitting overnight.
It's not
fire
as easy
burned right
as
down to
they
coals,
make
and
it
let's
out.
go see how it made out.
So this rim is nothing wrong with it. It didn't melt at all.
Any melt marks at all. But let's have a good look at it. We'll scrub it up and we'll have a peek. The paint and the clear coat. Even this spot right down here, it looked like it had melted, but it wasn't. It was just the
and
paint
yet we
there
see
also.
vehicles with the aluminum running down the road
On the other
50
side,
feet.
it's just toast from the heat.
You know, what temperature does it need to be
That's all the clear
to
coat right
make
there.
it to the point
Just
where it
bubbled
can run down the road for 50 feet?
Net neutrality. It's what made the net truly free and open and sparking innovation, education,
and the very best literature, music, technology, science, culture the world's ever seen.
In short, it's what made the net the most empowering, liberating force in human history, which is why we want to kill it, so fraudband providers can replace it with a two-tiered shitter net, with a fast lane for stuff they want you to see, and slow-ass speeds and extra fees for stuff they don't. In other words, a steaming pile of shit like cable TV. Shitternet! Where the only news you'll see is this, which coincidentally is owned by them, who'll make you do this to access your favorite sites, where these companies will dominate the net even more, and where if your ISP doesn't like what you say, you might end up seeing this. But don't worry, if you don't like it, you can always choose a different provider. We know most of you only have one option of ISP, so your only choice will be shitternet or no internet. It's all part of our mafia policy to let the people we work for, not you, these people, monopolize the internet. Shitternet! The only thing standing between you and this fucked up dystopian nightmare is Congress, which is why unless you get on the phone to them right now, on December we'll be voting to kill net neutrality, and with it the internet you love. Fortunately for us, you're all too busy fighting each other to come together and stop this bullshit, which will screw not just you, but everyone on the planet. Now you can finally relax and let down your guard. We realize it's finally time for us to move on to something else, such as sabotage authorized by the Department of Wealth and Inhumane Services, to justify our next attempt to strip you of your hair and replace it with wealth care. Do you suffer from a pre-existing condition such as not being rich? No problem. Wealth care offers a simple solution. Just fuck off and die. No mess, no fuss. But rest assured, we won't stop till we screw not just you, but everyone on the planet, including future generations who may never know a free and open internet.
Hello? Hello? Is this mic on? Listen, all I'm trying to say is myself and all of nature's creatures know the earth is flat. Okay? That's all I'm trying to say. It's flat today, it'll be flat tomorrow, and that's all you need to know. Okay? Say, You wouldn't try to shoot me like that last feller did, would you?
And that's it, guys. Carpe diem.